Welcome to Cyclone InCYders. I'm your host, John Miller. I'm joined here today with Aaron Hickman, Max Harfst, and Tyler Brewster. We're going to talk about some Cyclone sports. A big win this week for Iowa State over Kansas. It was nice to see them finally have a blowout win. We're going to talk about that more next on Cyclone InCYders. Welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. Iowa State football had a huge 52-22 victory over Kansas this week. What did you guys like the most in that game? It was a pretty dominating game for the Cyclones. You know, there's some ups and downs, but what did you guys like that you saw the most?
I thought the offense was very productive. You had a lot of different touches from 9 different players who caught a ball. Breece Hall had another phenomenal performance with his second straight 180-plus yard game. In this game, he averaged 8.8 yards a carry, and he's getting around 20 carries a game, and it's good to see that he's still getting touches, and they haven't switched too much up with the offense in this sense. The past few games, you've been able to see Brock Purdy is throwing a little more, and he looked all right this game, even despite the fact he threw an interception. But the rush defense, of course, played a little better, holding Kansas to 70 yards compared to last week's matchup against Oklahoma State where they had 200. But you have to remember, it's Kansas. Hutchinson, I like to see him play, and he had his highest yards total this game. And 3 of the last 4 games, he's had a touchdown. And towards the end of the game, we were able to see some of the second team, and I was impressed.
Yeah, the main thing I liked is that we were able to extend the lead and win by 30 and also cover, because things got Kansas was down by 16 at one point, which I didn't think they were going to come back, but it was just like you don't want to be the team that barely beats Kansas. So that was nice to see. And then I also just loved the game that Breece Hall had. He continues to – it seems like there hasn't been any kind of wear and tear on him or anything. He hasn't really slowed down at all over the course of the season. Then just at the end, extending that lead, so we were able to see potentially the future of Iowa State football, at least at the quarterback position. Hunter Decker's at the end. He has the Iowa high school record for passing yards in a career, and he's someone who I've followed a lot throughout his high school career. So it was cool to see him come in, complete 2 passes, and he dropped a dime on that touchdown. That was a perfect spiral. That was really cool to see from him. So just overall, I just like that we were able to extend the lead, have the dominant win that we were supposed to have, and then get to see some of those younger players in action, because in a game against Kansas, you expect to see some of the younger players get some playing time.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you guys said. You guys all made some great points. Another thing I found out about Breece Hall was that according to ESPN stats and information, he's just the 5th Power 5 player in the last 15 seasons to record 100-plus rush yards and a rush touchdown in each of his first 6 games of the season. So that's a pretty elite company. I think it's worth recognition for.
Yeah, I think you guys all brought up great points. Iowa State, it was up to expectations. I mean, we talked about last week how we really wanted to see them have that blowout win. And yeah, there was some downsides, but for the most part, Iowa State looked pretty dominant, and hopefully that will help them going in, later these games of the season. But like we talked about, Breece Hall, man, he's been a beast this year. This game against Kansas, he had 21 carries for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns. Had a 58-yard touchdown rush, averaged 8.8 yards per carry. I think last week against Oklahoma State, he averaged 9 again. So he's been having these games where he's running for astronomical yards per carry. I mean, you look at most running backs, and if they're running for 5 yards a carry, it's like, oh, yeah, they're really good. And Breece has just been an animal lately. How do you guys think he's able to run for so many yards per carry, and what do you kind of attribute that to, I guess?
Well, I think you have to give credit where it's due to the O-line, because he's had some pretty big holes to run through. They do a good job of getting him to the second level, where he's just really good at making guys miss, and that's the second part of it. He's very elusive, and he's really good at breaking tackles. And the two really big runs he had one that went for a touchdown. I think the other one went inside the 10-yard line. He almost got a touchdown on that one. And it was just making guys miss. And on that big run where he got them to 1st and goal, he made a big cut and ran all the way to the opposite side of the field from where he was and just kept chugging down the field. And it's just things like that. We saw it a lot with David Montgomery. And now Breece Hall is just continuing that workhorse tradition for Iowa State at running back. And he's wearing the number that Troy Davis wore. I remember there were some people that thought it was disrespectful that he was able to wear 28 and everything, but he's looked the part and he's played the part, and he's just continuing that trend for Iowa State at running back, which hopefully continues for years to come.
No, I definitely agree with you, Aaron. First and foremost, this dude is a tank, and the offensive line is great. Going back to last year in the Notre Dame game, the O-line allowed 4 sacks, and Iowa State only produced 58 yards on the ground. I believe this is used as prime motivation to help to improve the line. But no, going off what Aaron said, he has speed, strength, and a rebuilt O-line.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, the O-line deserves a lot of credit, but I think at the end of the day, you have to recognize greatness, and I think Solich has the speed and agility to be an elite running back for the rest of this year and next year and beyond. Even I think like a career in the NFL is possible for this guy.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like if we're making comparisons between Hall and Montgomery, it seems like Hall is just more athletic and he still has that power that Montgomery has. So it'd be, amazing to see him and Montgomery enjoying success in the NFL a few years down the line. But, only time will tell with that. But moving on, the Cyclones in this game against Kansas State, they gave up a kick return touchdown. Do you guys think we need a special teams coach? Campbell hasn't hired one during his time here, or do you guys think it's not that big of a deal?
I think it's become painfully obvious that we need a special teams coach. I think it's long overdue. Special teams has straight up lost some games this year. And the game against TCU was close and gave up a kickoff return for a touchdown in that one. So that was it a punt return? Either way, special teams touchdown. And so it made that one closer than it should have been. And then missed a couple field goals, which field goals obviously are a lot different. That's kind of more of the holder and the kicker to make that happen. But just the coverage has been atrocious at times. They've given up a lot of special teams touchdowns, and the kicking, Connor Asali has been good at times, and he also has had some bad stretches this year, like the game against Oklahoma State. So I think it'd be good for them to hire a special teams coach and hopefully shore up some of those things that have been very costly in some pretty big games so far this year.
3 words: spend the money. Yes, absolutely. It's the second time this year. It's the second kick return touchdown this year, and we're halfway through the season. Something to consider. Asali he missed a PAT in the second one of the season. There was a 14-yard punt, and it's the 4th touchdown on special teams allowed this year. At this point, about halfway through the season, and experiencing this many faults and errors with special teams, yeah, it's evident that we need a coach for this. It's important. Many points and yards have been given up, and I would say as the talent to have a solid special teams lineup, but of course need better coordination.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I actually didn't know that we didn't have a special teams coach special teams coach until just now. So I'm thinking obviously we need a coach for that. I mean, they score points, so they're important. I think with a position that important, that a coach is essential. So yeah, I agree. Spend the money, find a coach, and that's just gonna help us improve. We can only go up from here.
Yeah, it's a little unheard of, I would say, especially at the Power 5 level to not have one. But like you guys said, it's literally free points that we are giving away during games, and especially with a team of this caliber, where we're talking about one of the best teams the Cyclone has had in a decade or so. It's like we can't be just having these little mistakes that are going to kill us, because at the end of the day, those little things are what's going to matter the most in those games when it's close. So we'll see. Probably won't get hired, but it's just an interesting thing to talk about, especially from that fan standpoint. But Another thing that we saw during that Kansas game was many receivers getting playing time. We saw Joe Skate, Sean Shaw, Landon Akers, probably some other ones that I'm forgetting. Do you guys think we have a true number 2 behind Xavier Hutchinson? Hutchinson's kind of been the man this year. We've had some injuries at the receiver position as well, but as you guys know, we've had to replace some huge receivers in the likes of Hakeem Butler and Deshaunte Jones in the past couple of years. So do you guys think we have a true number 2, or is it going to be just wide receiver by committee from here on out?
I think Landon Akers, even though he's tied third on the team for receptions with Breece Hall, I think he's proven himself to be a solid wide receiver too, racking 205 yards up this season with a longest reception of 49 yards. And you can't tell me he's a solid 2 given the weird start to the season we've had.
Yeah, I think when Tariq Milton is healthy, him and Hutchinson are 1 and 2. Hutchinson is kind of that big possession receiver that every team needs, and Milton is the speedy guy that you can put outside one-on-one or also put him in the slot. But with Milton out, Landon Akers has been tremendous. He's a senior with a lot of experience in the offense, and just seems like he makes the right plays. He knows when to get out of bounds, when to get more yardage, just little things like that experienced receivers are very essential to a team. But yeah, Akers has been the one really stepping up. Hopefully Tariq Milton can get healthy so we can make the offense even more dynamic, but I think he did a great job on Saturday. And if Milton is going to be hurt for the foreseeable future, it's going to be in good hands with Akers out there on the field as the number 2 receiver.
I think we have a whole bunch of good wide receivers. I agree. Milton's injuries obviously make unfortunate. It's going to hurt us, but I think that with Hutchinson and Akers stepping up, it's going to be very valuable. Xavier Hutchinson, for this whole season, he has 384 yards, which is pretty good. So, he's proved himself. So I think we just keep trusting him, going to him.
Yeah, as we pointed out in previous episodes, the pass game has been a little bit of a decline this year, especially with Hall coming on more, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's showing we're more balanced, but you can attribute that to our wide receivers maybe being a little worse, especially with Milton out and Jones gone. But I'd say these guys have stepped in pretty well. I mean, when I watch Akers out there, dude, I gave him the nickname White Lightning because this dude can fly for being white. I mean, I was surprised the first time I watched him, because in the previous years, he really hadn't played for Iowa State. And now it's like, whoa, where did this guy come from? Especially when, you've heard so much about Shaw and States kind of being hyped up to be those next man up. But Akers has definitely been an under the radar option. And I agree with you guys that he's, our second best receiver out there. But on the defensive side of the ball, oh boy, on Saturday did they look nice, especially up front. Jaquan Bailey and Will McDonald, despite getting held every play and not even getting called, they were still getting sacks out there. I think they both had a sack and a half or a sack each and a couple tackles for loss. How do you guys think they rank amongst the best defensive linemen in the Big 12?
So I think Bailey and McDonald are actually 1A and 1B. You can rank them how you'd like, but I think they're the top 2. McDonald is first in the conference with 5.5 sacks, and Bailey's just behind him at second with 5 sacks. And Bailey's also second in the country in tackles for loss, and the 2 players ahead of him are both linebackers, so he has the most tackles for loss among B linemen in the country. Kari Coleman from TCU has also looked pretty good. He's only a freshman, and he's second in the conference in tackles for loss and 7th in the country. And there's also Akeem Messidor, who's also just a freshman for West Virginia, and he's tied for 3rd in the conference with 4 sacks. So basically, there's some other talented defensive linemen in the conference, but if you just look at the stats and also just use the eye test to determine how they impact the game, I think McDonald and Bailey are the best. And like you said, the amount of holes that sometimes they don't even draw, but I know Will McDonald, it seems it's just insane how many holes that guy draws. It's probably due to how huge he is. I think a lot of offensive linemen don't really know how to handle him. And so that's just a thing that it doesn't really put an effect on the numbers like a sack or a tackle for loss, but it impacts the game and hurts the opposing offense. So, yeah, I definitely think they're 1A and 1B in the Big 12, just if you take everything into account on how they played this season.
Absolutely, Aaron. Bailey and McDonald are the best linemen in the Big 12. As you said, they're leading the conference in sacks, and they both combined for an average around 3 tackles a loss per game. Joseph Osai from Texas is having a solid season. He's nearly tied with Bailey in all of those stats, but he's a linebacker, as you said. Thus giving Bailey and McDonald the honor of being the best Big 12 lineman.
Yeah, you guys made great, fantastic points. At the end of the day, you can't argue with stats. I think Bailey and McDonald are posting the best stats, so therefore, I think they deserve the titles of the best doing the league right now, or conference. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. McDonald, I mean, he had a presence last year, and so did Bailey, but these guys are just on another level this year, and I think that's been a huge part of the Iowa State defense and the success we've been having, because in the past, it seems like our linebackers, especially, Harvey, Rose, and some other guys that I'm probably missing have kind of had the spotlight, but these guys up front deserve their credit, and I think they're finally going to start to get it this year. But as we brought up earlier, the second team unit, when they came in on Saturday, they look nice, man. Hunter Deckers, 2 for 2, 55 yards, touchdown. When Purdy is gone, either after this year or next year, do you guys think this is our next man up, or do you think Iowa State's going to recruit somebody else and kind of give them the reins?
Well, I definitely think he has a leg up after that. I mean, I know it was only 2 passes, but just how tight and how perfect that spiral was on that touchdown to Skates. Those are things that coaches are going to remember in the off seasons when, like you said, either after this year or the next when Purdy is gone. So he looks like he has what it takes. And it's hard to say because there most likely will be a competition when Purdy comes on, and it's hard to know exactly what recruits are going to come in. But just Deckers being the first one in as the second string quarterback and as a sub shows that he is at least in the coaching staff's mind right now, the guy behind Purdy, ready to take over the reins if needed.
No, I think this is a little too early to tell. And although, I mean, those were 2 beautiful passes, he's only had 2 pass attempts on the whole season, and he's a freshman. And he played against Kansas, and that can't be, I mean, it's not the best competition he'll see. And he didn't really see legitimate action. I think it's likely Iowa State could recruit somebody else because the past few years it's evident Iowa State's recruited phenomenal players, but right now I think it's hard to tell.
I think the most important thing is that he had experience. He proved that he can score in like a Power 5 conference. But then again, I like Max's point. It was Kansas, arguably the worst team in like the Power 5 conference. But I think it's possible. We'll just have to see if he gets more playing time for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a long ways out. He's a freshman, but, we just always like to speculate on here, and he definitely showed some promise with his arm and everything like that. But, as we know, Iowa State, we recruit kind of those underrated guys, 3 stars and 4 stars that go overlooked, like Purdy and even Real Mitchell when he was here. Kind of snagged him. So, if we're going to get somebody that's going to take over for Deckers, I think Aaron might know, but I think Deckers was a 2 or 3 star recruit. So he wasn't even a high recruit either by any means, but he was one of the better ones in Iowa. So we were lucky to get him at Iowa State because usually Iowa controls the in-state recruits. But, Iowa State in the future, we'll just have to see if they pick somebody up. But for now, Purdy's the man, and Deckers is just going to have to learn from him. That's the bottom line. But for the Iowa State football team as a whole, they got Baylor at home this weekend. See if they can roll off the momentum. What do you guys think this team's going to need to do to win this game?
4 things. Go ahead. Feed Breece Hall. Don't turn it over. Clean up special teams. And keep up the intensity on defense. Those 4 things should come out with a win against Baylor.
I think the special teams needs to show up. Tristan Ebner leads the Big 12 from Baylor, leads the Big 12 in kick return average, and has 2 returns all the way this year. Terrell Bernard leads the Big 12 in tackles and is 5th for sacks. He's a key defensive player to prevent as long as he doesn't pressure Purdy or halt Breece. Iowa State should be fine. There's definitely a wider game this year. If Lyon opens some holes for Breece and Hutchinson keeps his consistent performance, along with Bailey and McDonald getting past Baylor's line, I think Iowa State's set for a good win.
Yeah, I think I'm optimistic. I think we'll pull off the win. I know that the kickoff's at 6 p.m., so we might be wearing blackout, which we have good history with. But yeah, I think we definitely need to clean up special teams. If Bailey and McDonald keep up their intensity on the defensive end, and if Brees Hall can just keep up his elite running so far, then I think we can pull off the win.
Yeah, guys, we're just gonna have to play well on all three sides of the ball to win this game. No, I'm just kidding. Iowa State. I agree with everything you guys brought up. The offense especially looked great last week. So, and the defense, but I thought the offense really stuck out in my opinion. So if we can just keep that up against Baylor, even if we give up more than 28 points, I think we should be all right. So, that's kind of my keys for the week, I guess, is just to see that offense continue success both in passing and running. But we'll see. Next on Cyclone InCYders, we're going to talk about some soccer and cross country, so make sure you stick around for that. Welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. The Iowa State soccer team lost 0-2 to Kansas State this week. It was a game that was kind of a toss-up. Iowa State, they controlled the game, the whole game, really. They had more shots than Kansas State with a 20-10 advantage and more corner kicks with an 8-1 advantage. But at the end of the day, they just didn't get it done. They lost the game. How do you guys think that happens where, you control the whole game like that and you get more shots, you think they'd win, but, how does that happen where you just fall short?
Fannin himself even said they were unlucky, though they played well. But the defense just couldn't stop K-State star Brooklyn Entz. Kansas State also had a solid game with 6 saves, and that potentially led to Iowa. Iowa State had an inability to score, thus resulting in their loss.
Yeah, so out of Iowa State's 20 shots, only 6 of them were on target, which was the 6 saves. And we talked about it last week, just not capitalizing on opportunities. And it's good that they got a lot of shots off and continue to put pressure on the defense, but it just shows that maybe they're settling and not waiting or working for the right shot. On their past 3 games, the game against Texas, 3 out of their 12 shots were on target. Last week against Texas Tech, they only had 4 shots and none of them were on target. And now this week, 6 out of 20. So that's 25%, 0%, and now 30%. And it's just not where you want to be if you want to score and be efficient on the offensive side.
Yeah, I think they're a young team, so they are competitive, which is what matters. It's only Fannon's first year, so just give him time. He's still building the culture and the team and all that. But I just think the most important part is that they're competitive. If you look at the stats, they should have won. They had more possessions. They took more shots. But yeah, it just didn't work our way. But as long as we showed them we were tough, I think it's a step in the right direction. It wasn't a blowout, I think.
Yeah, I was actually at the game on Friday, so I was able to kind of see some of the things that Kansas State did. And I can tell you on defense, they were packing it in and making it really hard for Iowa State to score. So, Iowa State was just pulling from way beyond the box. And the shots weren't even close. It was a desperation shot. They had a few that kind of caromed off the bar and just missed by a few feet. So if those would have went in, it would have been an entirely different game. But for the most part, they were just throwing up things. And, I give credit to Kansas State for that. But at the same time, I think Iowa State could have done a better job of just kind of settling down a little bit and not just it almost seemed like they were panicking for a goal. You know what I mean? Because, and I don't think that's necessarily the best way to go on offense, but I don't think that's to Fannin. I think that's more on the players. But, it's just things that come with a losing team that hasn't been, really up there in the Big 12 standings in the past, for a long time. So, they're just slowly learning to win in these close games like this. Will eventually go their way, I think. But like we kind of talked about, 4 out of their last 5 games have been without a goal. How do you guys think they just continually fall short? You think at least the luck would go their way once or twice. What do you guys think about that?
Once again, I think it's just kind of a lack of execution. You have to be able to work for the right shot and take advantage of those corner kick opportunities. And when you control the entire game the way you did against K-State, you got to have something to show for it. You can say there's moral victories, but you want to get a win. There's no moral victories with it. And it just comes down to the execution. And I do like to say we do talk about things that this team can improve on, but just compared to years past, they are so much better. They just having 2 wins this year, there's been a lot of improvement, but just building on it for next year, second year under Fannin, just hope to execute better on the offensive side of the ball, and hopefully the defense can continue to let Silkowitz do her thing and hold teams to low scores so that offense can continue to grow.
Well, you said it, Aaron. They're playing solid competition, and they're giving their absolute best effort, but they're just not able to capitalize.
I 100% agree. I think that this is important to note that in Campbell's first year, I think he won only 3 games. And so this is kind of similar. I think Fannon's in the same boat. I don't really think we can properly judge this team until like next year and maybe even year 3. But they're being competitive, and that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Tyler. I mean, on this show, it may seem like we're being really critical of them at times, but we praise them for how much better they've been this season, and really it's just things that are separating them from that elite level because they're so close. I mean, they've had so many games where they're right there and close to beating some of those top 3, top 4 teams in the conference, but they just end up falling short because they can't score. But they'll get there eventually, and I think Fannon's going to lead them there. But they just can't keep shooting themselves in the foot, and I think next season Fannon's really going to focus on that, especially on the offensive end. But this Friday is going to be their last game against Kansas on the road. They got a 2-6 record. This is going to be the last game for 5 seniors: Courtney Powell, Cassie Ginther, Shea Sullivan, McKenna Schultz, and Tavin Hayes. What is this team losing in these players, and how do you guys think they can replace it in the future?
I mean, they're losing a pretty significant chunk of the production from this season. And as many seniors as there are, there's still a lot of young talent on the team. Jordan Silkowitz will be back, and she's looked great, obviously, arguably the best goalkeeper in the Big 12. Mira Emma as well, other players like that. So Fannin obviously is going to have to do some recruiting. And now that he's been here for a season, he's really been able to learn the strengths and weaknesses of the program over the course of an entire season. And I'm curious to see what the 2021 recruiting class is going to look like. But there is plenty to be hopeful for, and the future is very bright for a lot of the players that will be returning next season.
You know, the team is losing talent both defensively and offensively, losing a few defenders, a few forwards, but it's still a relatively young team with a stellar coach who has a promising career here at ISU.
Yeah, I think out of those 5 seniors who are graduating, 2 are defenders, 3 are forwards, and I was looking at their biographies. So Powell was the team leader in points and goals in 2019. I think Ginther, she scored team high 4 goals in 2018. And then Sullivan, she made a game winner with OSU in 2018. So these girls have experience. They are they're effective scorers. So I think that's one thing that fans definitely going to have to try and find is just producing players who are comfortable like making the big shots and being like the go-to player and leading the team.
Yeah, as you pointed out, Tyler, I mean, they're losing a huge part of their scoring, though. That's already weak in that sense. But, Fannin really hasn't had and I guess a counterpoint to that, Fannin really hasn't had the opportunity to kind of get his own players in there and recruit them because even in his first year, obviously COVID happened. So it's like, we really didn't get to see the full powers of his recruiting. And I think next year that'll just be interesting to see how they kind of replace some of these women and what they can do as a team to their full capacity under Fannin to see how they blossom. But anyways, with that being said, how bright do you guys think the future is here? And what do you guys think they can maybe achieve next year or even down the line?
I think with Fannin speaking to the media, you can from his quotes, he's clearly an optimist, and they've proven themselves. His team has proven themselves to be hard workers. Just like Fannin has said over and over, luck hasn't been in their favor. I think there are many good goals to strive for, and they have a chance of matching their last year's record with 3 wins with a shortened season. And I think that's incredible.
Yeah, I think actually getting in the win column this year in the conference was great. And like I mentioned earlier, as much as we talk about what they can improve on and things like that, there's a lot to go off of from this year. And it might not get turned around immediately, but hopefully with Fannin having his first season under his belt, they can kind of establish themselves as a middle of the pack team in the conference in 2021, and then just continue to rise from there as Fannin continues. And Tyler, you made the reference to Matt Campbell earlier. I mean, look at where the Iowa State football program is now that Campbell has some of his own recruits in there and he's developed them with his coaching staff. It's going to be the same story, I think, for Fannin and his staff as he establishes himself at Iowa State.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest parts about this year is just establishing that culture, and I think there's probably a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing. There's probably just more structured practices and just stuff beyond that. So I think if they're making strides off the field that we're not going to be able to see, I think that's just huge. Try and build a culture that puts winning first, and I think we can't really judge them based off this year. So just give them time, trust the process, and it'll work out.
Yeah, I think the small schedule this year of only 9 games, the conference only schedule, I think that really hurt them because, these games where the luck seemingly went against them and the other team won. You'd think those games would have went the other way, kind of maybe later in the season towards them. So I think that really hurt them this year, and I'd be interested to see what they look like in a full season normally. But like you guys said, Fannin, he's a great guy to be around, has great energy, and he really stresses just winning everything from the drills to the games, even to the first one, the lunch line is what he told me one day. So just things like that, I think really is going to set them apart and hopefully propel them to the top of the conference in years to come for us to see here at Iowa State. But moving on to another sport that had tremendous success this weekend at Iowa State. A little bit under the radar, not talked much about, but the Iowa State cross country team. The women's side of cross country, they won the Big 12 championship for the 8th time in 10 years this past weekend. How impressive do you guys think that dominance is, and what could you compare it to in other sports?
I think that's very impressive. It's comparable to other individual sports such as wrestling or golf. It takes a lot of individual effort, mental strength, but collective support and motivation. I think it is very impressive. So because every single member of that team has to have the same goal, the same motivation, the same drive, the same work ethic, and you see that in any aspect of sports. But you're able to. It's truly represented in cross country, I feel like.
Yeah, it does kind of make me think of some of the basketball teams throughout history, like UCLA with John Wooden. They won it 10 times in 11 years, and then the Bulls 6 times in 8 years in the 90s. The Boston Celtics 13 times in 19 years, and within that they won it like 11 times in 13 years back when they had Bill Russell and Red Auerbach. But the unique thing about cross country is that it's a team sport with some of the scoring, but it's also very individually oriented. So like you said, Max, it takes everyone in that team, the collective, being able to have the same goals and strive for the same thing, but also be very individually driven just on an individual basis and make it happen. So yeah, it made me think of some of those basketball teams just in terms of how many times winning so many times over the course of so many years. But I think cross country is a little more unique than that.
I think this is huge. I think this reminds me of, like, when you think of college football, I automatically think of Clemson or Alabama. And if they're in the running world, people think of Iowa State as being up there. So I think we're making a name for ourselves with a great program. And I really think we have to give credit to Iowa State staff for recruiting the players but runners that have that certain drive and like team orientation. And obviously the players themselves. They're running like 6 and 10Ks and 8Ks, so that's hard. I did cross country in high school, and it was difficult. And these people were running double that distance, probably twice as fast as I did. So, incredible drive, incredible perseverance, strong motivation. I know they run like in the morning too, so they're early mornings, late nights. So props to these guys; they deserve it.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I knew our cross country team was good, but when I looked up the stats, I was absolutely blown away knowing that they'd won 8 in 10 years. I think that's phenomenal. It's really unbelievable and unparalleled success, especially at Iowa State here. So it's great to give them some recognition. Definitely deserve it. But just to point out some of the individual runners on the women's side, Callie Lowe claimed her third straight individual Big 12 crown with a 6K time of pretty much 20 minutes on the nose, including Logue. Iowa State had 4 women finish in the top 10. Those are just some phenomenal numbers, and Logue, especially on the women's side, is one of the best runners we've had here at Iowa State. I think her, with that third crown, she tied the record for most individual titles in the Big 12. So that just points to her, points to the program, kind of being on that showcase and our success. But on the men's side, for the first time in Big 12 history, theirs was a little bit of controversy. It finished in a tie between Iowa State and Oklahoma State. They both finished with 31 points at the end of the meet. But then the people running the meet, Big 12 committee or whatever, they decided the tiebreaker was the top 5 runners from each side. And from that, the timing of the top 5 runners, the Cowboys emerged as winners over the Cyclones. Do you guys think that was a fair way to break the tie?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair just for the fact that even though it is rare, you know what the rules are, and you know that if there is a tiebreaker, that's how it's going to be decided. So I basically just think it's fair from the perspective of, like, you know what you're getting into and you know what you signed up for if there is a tiebreaker. There might be better ways to determine it, but I don't see a huge problem with it. It's just kind of an unfortunate break for Iowa State.
In high school level of cross country in Iowa, anyway, that's how tiebreakers are broken. And yes, I do think it's fair. I don't think you can break a tie by adding all their times up. If a train decides to go in the middle of the cross country course and slows everybody down, you can't break a tie that way. And I think this is a fair way to break a tie.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Obviously they did it. Not knowing who was favored or anything, it's a pretty standard way, and I'm cool with that. Obviously it didn't work out in our favor, but it seems objectively fair.
Yeah, I could see where you guys are coming from. Personally, I never ran cross country in high school, so I can't speak on the experience behalf. But just from looking at it, I feel like everybody's time should be included because if you had the top 5 runners, you could just be like, oh yeah, we don't care about the bottom half and just focus on your best runners. So in my opinion, I think that's a little bit BS, but that's the rule. That's how it's played. Like you said, that's what they signed up for. Unfortunately, Iowa State just got the short end of the stick and couldn't repeat as winners because last year I know they won it. But a huge spot of the men's side, Wesley Kiptoo won the individual title with 22:35.4 in the 8K. Will be interesting to see his future. He's only a junior. He's going to probably, winning as a junior, he's probably going to compete with some of the greats on the men's side as well, such as Kurgat last year and just some of those other ones. So we'll be interested to see his career and the rest of the cross-country runners coming up and see if they can continue their dominance in the future here at Iowa State and, be one of the program that's under the radar but just keeps winning titles. But anyways, next we're going to go ahead and pick all the Big 12 games from the week. Most of us, besides Aaron, had an excellent week last week, so we're going to go ahead and pick all those games next on Cyclone InCYders. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. Now is time for your most exciting part of the show, the Big 12 Pick'em segment. Yours truly, John Miller, at the top of the standings at 12-2. I've been on a hot streak lately. I went, I think, 4-1 last week. We got Max coming in here at 6-3. Aaron's at 8-5, and Tyler's at 2-1. He hasn't been around for the big, the long slate of games that the Big 12 has played because kind of early in the season they were down. Anyways, Iowa State last week, I think they were 28-point favorites or something, and they ended up winning by 30. So they saved us all. Still undefeated, picking the Cyclones. So I guess you'll just have to see if we pick them again later in the show. Our first game here on the slate, we got West Virginia going to Texas. Texas ranked the 22nd in the polls. Longhorns favored by 6.5 at home. What do you guys got in this one and why?
So first of all, I just want to share how badly I got screwed with that Texas and Oklahoma State game. And this is the importance of turnovers. So Texas had 287 yards compared to Oklahoma State's 530, 169 passing yards compared to Oklahoma State's 400, 15 less first downs, 4 more punts, 72 more penalty yards against them. But Oklahoma State fumbled 3 times and threw a pick, and Texas turned it over 0 times. So thanks a lot, Oklahoma State, for ruining my weekend, and I have Texas covering.
Yep, I have Texas covering as well. I think that win against a weird win against OK State really did them well. I think they're finding their groove, unfortunately, but the groove will stop when they play Iowa State. But I'm going with Texas on this one.
I'm with Texas as well. They're a ranked team. They're playing at home. I think they're going to defend home turf. But shout out to West Virginia. They did beat Kansas State last year, so I don't think it'll be an easy win for Texas, but I'm still going Texas.
You know, Aaron, when you're just blessed like the rest of us, those things just don't happen. But you know, it's tough being on the short end of the stick, especially when Oklahoma State just doubles their yards. But Texas, man, I'm a little scared, boy, because I think this might be the team that beats Iowa State again. So we'll have to wait and see about that one. But for this, I'm going to go with the Longhorns. I think they're going to beat West Virginia coming off that Oklahoma State win. Texas is, for that matter. So I think they're just going to keep it rolling. And, yeah. So anyways, on to our next matchup. A little bit more lackluster, but we got Texas Tech going to TCU. Horned Frogs favored by 8.5. What do you guys think in that one?
I don't know if you guys remember this, but I picked, can't remember TCU's mascot's name, but I picked their mascot to be my favorite mascot in the nation. I'm going to go with TCU this one. I think Texas Tech is still atrocious on third down, and TCU will be dominant.
Yeah, TCU's run game was really good last week. They had 247 yards, and they held Charlie Brewer to Baylor. From Baylor to 207 yards and only 17 for 37 passing. I think it's going to be a lot of the same against a pretty bad Texas Tech team, and I have the Horned Frogs covering.
I agree. I like to play devil's advocate, but Texas Tech is pretty bad. I don't really see that happening. Pretty much with all the third down woes and stuff. So I am going to go with TCU on this.
You know, yeah. I want to win, right? I want to win the standings and pick TCU. But with just such a large lead, I almost feel like going blockbuster here. But especially with TCU winning that game over Baylor, it's tough. But, you know, something's just telling me Red Raiders inside. So I'm going to pick the Red Raiders. You know, on the road, traditionally they're, or at least from my knowledge, they're usually more of a home team. But they're going to light it up there at TCU, and it's going to be a high-scoring one. I'm thinking 49-42, something crazy like that. But I'm telling you, man, Red Raiders, Patrick Mahomes, he's going to be watching the game. He's going to be excited. Be an interesting one to see on Friday. But now, oh, man, Kansas on the road at number 19, Oklahoma. Sooners favored by 37.5. I mean, we saw the line for Iowa State last week favored by 28, and we're like, oh, man, I don't know if Cyclones can handle this. Sooners favored by 10 more points. You guys think Oklahoma can cover this one?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take Kansas to win their first game this season. No, I'm just playing. Kansas is terrible. They kind of made things interesting against Iowa State. The spread is really big, but Oklahoma is just really explosive. I don't think Kansas will be able to handle it. I think it's going to be one of those games that's just completely over in the first half. So I'm going to take Oklahoma to cover. Yeah, I'm going to take them to cover. It's kind of tough just because of how big it is, but I'm going to take them to cover.
Nope. I agree with you, Aaron. I think Oklahoma's going to cover. Kansas sucks. That's all there is to it.
Yep. I don't see Kansas winning a single game this year. So going to Oklahoma.
It would just be wrong for me to talk all that shit about Kansas last week and then go ahead and pick them this week. So I better stay safe and pick the Sooners as much as I don't wanna. But yeah, it's just Kansas is bad, man. So they're almost like Texas in the sense that they're finally coming around and kind of being that Big 12 team we expected them to be. So I think they're just going to be a 50-point blowout or something along that line. So we'll see about that on this weekend. But like we said, Oklahoma State used to be number 6 last week. Now they're down to number 14 this week. They're on the road this week at Kansas State, who also had kind of a brutal loss last week. Cowboys favored by 11.5. What do you guys think in this one?
So K-State looked pretty bad last week. Will Howard looked and played like a freshman. And just from what I saw from Kansas State and Oklahoma State having a narrow loss to what looks to be a really good Texas team now, I think they're going to rebound and cover against Kansas State.
I think they lost in overtime against Texas by only a touchdown. Like you said, Kansas State had a pretty bad game last week against West Virginia. Going with what was I looking at? Oklahoma State. My bad.
Yep, I'm with OSU too. Just because K-State is 4-1 and Oklahoma State is 3-1, so with OSU one, that improves the Cyclones' chance of advancing to the Big 12 championship, which is something that I think we all want. So I guess I'm rooting for the Cowboys this game.
Yeah, without Skylar Thompson, Kansas State's looked a little rough on offense. And Oklahoma State, you could argue their offense is the best in the Big 12. They have Hubbard and Wallace out there who are both NFL talents. And their quarterback, obviously Sanders, he's tremendous as well. But Kansas State, man, I don't know. You guys don't think Oklahoma State's going to be a little bit down after that loss against Texas? I don't know, man. I'm feeling a little spooky here, but I'm going to go with Oklahoma State as well. I think 11 is not that much. I could see them winning by 2 touchdowns, but don't count out Kansas State. Don't think it's going to be a blowout. It'll be interesting to see that one this weekend. But now, the big one we've been waiting for, Baylor at Iowa State. They gave the Cyclones a 14-point spread. Ooh, I don't know. What do you guys think about this one?
So first of all, do you guys remember last year that whole controversy with like the tents on the sideline when Iowa State was at Baylor, and it was like heat stroke weather there, and they took away Iowa State's tents. So now people are saying that like Iowa State shouldn't provide Baylor with warmers and everything now that they're in Iowa. I just think that's funny, and it adds like an interesting perspective to the game. We'll see what happens there. We'll see if there's another controversy. Anyways, picking Iowa State hasn't failed me yet this year. I think their defense is going to give Baylor problems. Night game is going to be under the lights. I expect a big Breece Hall game, and I can expect the offense to just continue what they've been able to put together the past couple games. So I'm gonna pick Iowa State just because they are yet to let me down.
So you guys know Chip Gaines, right, from Fixer Upper?
Yeah.
He's not going to be able to fix the mess Iowa State will put on with Baylor. Iowa State by 50, baby.
I love the confidence. I agree. I think we're gonna win. It's an easy dub. I'm going with it.
Guys, I'm looking at Baylor's schedule here, and they've had some close losses. I mean, West Virginia double overtime, 21-27, lost to Texas by 11, lost to TCU by 10. They've been in every game and haven't lost by more than 14, and they're giving Iowa State 14 points? Jeez, man, that's tough to pick the Cyclones. Especially, coming off Kansas and a loss before that, is Iowa State really the team that, nationally contends like that? Well, I'm going to tell you who they are because the Cyclones are going to win on Saturday. 14 points. I mean, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, but I think we can get it done by 17 or even 21. And, Baylor, they're down. They lost 3 in a row. Brewer and that new coach they have there kind of just meshing still together. And no, I think the Cyclones are going to get it done this weekend. Haven't lost yet. I'm not going to change now, as everybody knows. So don't fix what's not broken, I guess, in that sense. So Cyclones all the way, baby. But yeah, as always, biased picks on Insiders. But we'll see next week how those pan out. But other than that, it's been a huge year so far for, soccer, cross country, volleyball. We'll make sure to keep you guys posted on that, how they end their seasons, especially, for football this game this week. But anyways, yeah, we'll talk about that Baylor game and more next week on Cyclone Insiders. Hopefully we see you guys there. See ya.